condemnation, condemnation of what is happening in the Kashmir Valley, the killings of the innocent people and the armed forces, which has been in the news since the last 1 month. Of course, the situation in the valley has been on fire for the past 30 years and nothing much has changed. But in the past 1 month, things have significantly deteriorated. And we have seen the terrorist organizations become extremely active now. And they have openly started to target the minority Hindus. Once again, they have terrorized the community which had started to resettle in Kashmir for the past 2 or 3 years due to various actions taken by the government, the PM packages and all that, and some 800 plus families were now residing in the Kashmir Valley. Since the insurgence of this recent brutality, many of the families have moved out of the valley. Many are terrorized, and many are basically told by the directives of the administration to stay put in their own homes. So this has obviously created a scenario which closely resembles what had happened in 1990 when about 4 lakh Kashmiri Pandits had to flee the Kashmir Valley, had to leave their homes. And it brings that scene from 1990 back to our memories, which we have never forgotten. So Kashmiri Overseas Association is initiating this global protest along with all the Kashmiri Pandit community globally to send a condemnation about the killings of the civilians and the army jawans, of whom we know that in the recent days or a week, there have been many jawans killed in the valley. Right from the barbaric killing of Mr. Ajay Pandita 2 years back and Rakesh Pandit, followed by Mr. Bindru just about a few weeks back. And our Sikh brothers and non-Kashmiri minorities, the street vendors, the teachers, the civil society, which they have tried to create a state of normalcy in the valley. With the deaths of these individuals, the terrorists have started to gain ground in the valley. Only this morning we heard that another 2 individuals, one a very young man, Mr. Arvind Kumar, a 40-year-old Bihari individual, and another individual whose name I'm not able to confirm at this time, have been already martyred. In addition, in Punch, there's confirmation that 2 army jawans have lost their lives. There might be more, but we are waiting for the confirmation. We have openly condemned these killings along with our other KP brothers, and we want to send a clear message to the government of the state as well as government of India that we need to make sure that the safety of the minority community within the valley is going to be of utmost importance. It is unacceptable that we on one side, we are encouraging the minorities to return to Kashmir and create jobs and other avenues for them to go back. And on the other, we do not have security so that these people, they become easy targets for the terrorists and their guns. It is indeed a very precarious situation. So it brings me to this open discussion today with the very esteemed panelists who are experts in their own manner on these situations in their own way. So we have we have an expert group here, and I'm going to name a few. Mr. Vijay Sazawal, he's a founding member of Indo-American Kashmiri Forum and has been active in this role for the past 4 to 5 decades. He's a political analyst, a commentator, and he is a very dynamic personality who knows everything about the Kashmir politics. So welcome, Vijayji. I don't know if Vijayji is with us, but he was trying to. Vijayji, oh yes. Vijayji, are you?
He's here.
Yes, I'm. I had to change my computer. Namaskar, I'm really sorry. This is not my best. For some reason, when I was promoted to the panelist, it got me into trouble. Maybe that's a lesson for the future. Thank you very much. This is a very important, quite frankly, discussion that will follow today. I'm grateful to the KOA organization in general and to the president in particular for having given me a chance to kind of sort of open up the discussion, which we'll hear from many learned people. And what I want to say is I'll set the stage so that people can then essentially go from there. And I'll briefly address what we are talking about, who did it.
Vijayji, I'm so sorry. Can I introduce the other panelists as well?
Oh,
And
I'm
we'll
sorry.
come back to you. We'll come back to you.
Sure.
So we have Dr. Ramesh Rana from India, and he is the AIK's president who has just recently taken the office. He has been extremely active in his vocal condemnation, and he has had many meetings with the governmental agencies as well as the civil society in India. He is going to be speaking, of course, from India. We have Mrs. Suhag Shukla, who is a co-founder of Hindu American Foundation in US. She has helped steer the foundation and in being recognized as the leading voice for civil rights, human rights, and the religious freedom of Hindus in this country. Welcome, Suhag. We have Ashok Pandit. Mr. Pandit is a well-known personality in India. He's a social activist. He is a filmmaker, a television director, and a firebrand social activist. He's currently he serves as the president of the Indian Film and Television Directors Association. He is a voice, a very vocal voice on Arnab Goswami's television show, The Republic. Welcome, Ashokji. We have Mr. Mohan Vanchu. He is a United States citizen, a CEO, founder of EC Infosystems, entrepreneur, community activist, and a philanthropist. Welcome, Mohanji. We have Mr. Ashok Cole from Canada. He is a former National Research Council scientist and a longtime president of the Indo-Canadian Kashmiri Forum, and he brings the voice from Canada to us. We have Mr. Sanjay Peshin. He is the president of the Kashmiri Pandit Association in Europe, and he just was at a protest rally in front of the Pakistani, I think, consul in London. Yes. So he will be speaking his experiences. We have Mr. Anil Misri from Dubai, UAE, and he is a community activist. I have worked with Mr. Misri just recently when we had the virtual camp, and he is obviously a patriot, and you can see the Indian flag flying very proudly behind him, and he has an NGO. So welcome, Mr. Misri. We do expect Mr. Tariq Fateh sometimes to join us in the middle of the program. And so welcome to all the panelists here. This program will be moderated by Jyotsna Sharma. She is a TV anchor and a very well-known personality from the TV here from TV Asia. Jyotsna has worked as a producer and a host with multiple TV channels in USA. Her show covers debates and discussions on the current affairs affecting the Indian community. She also works in an IT company as a business development director. She is a co-founder of a nonprofit known as High Skilled Immigrants for America, and she is doing advocacy in making sure that the recent immigrants get a green card who are being stuck in the backlog in US. Thank you so much, Jyotsna, for joining with us and moderating this discussion today. And with this, I'm going to give the mic to Jyotsna. She'll be conducting the further program. At the end, of course, I will want to put some comments and particularly certain pointers towards what we want the message of this program to be. It's not only a discussion. We are trying to send a clear message to our community here, our Hindu community here, also abroad globally, and also to the government of India, and tell them that what we as a minority community in the Valley, as a community who has lost everything in the past 30 years, what do we expect from the government and what should the government of India be doing? Thank you so much. And Jyotsna, the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kopru. Namaskar to everyone, all the esteemed panelists and the viewers who are watching us in this live webinar and the live stream on Facebook. It's a very important day today when, the entire Kashmiri diaspora is doing a global protest on the recent killings in Kashmir. Why is it happening? How is it happening? What is the, agenda behind it? Are the local Kashmiris, the local Muslims in Kashmir Valley interested in this kind of killing? Or this is a bigger ploy by people who are against our nation? There are a lot of questions and we need answers for them. Today, for sure, we will start with this intensive discussion. And of course, we have, as Dr. Kopru introduced, Mr. Vijay Sazawal. I will start with him, asking him about the historic perspective of Kashmir problem vis-a-vis the, Pakistan's role in this active terrorism. Vijayji, we need inputs from you, and the input should be given in such a way that the general public understands this problem at a deeper level.
Namaskar, Jyotsnaji. Thank you very much. I am actually, Jyotsnaji, allow me to, in order to get the value from this meeting, I thought I'll give the background, but I'll focus the background essentially to the situation that is arising now. And that, in effect, will set the stage for all the discussion that will follow. So I'll briefly address what we are talking about, who did it, why it happened, and what that means for Kashmiri Pandits. So what happened essentially are a new spate of targeted killings. There have been 30 in 2021 alone. That reminds us of the 1989-1990 situation when the Kashmiri Valley, which led to the genocide of Pandits who became refugees in their own country. The month of October 2021 is especially gruesome. On October 2nd, Saturday, Mr. Mohammad Shafi Dar and Majid Gojri were shot dead. Tuesday, October 5th, Shri Makalal Bendru and Mr. Virendra Paswan and Mohammad Shafi were shot dead. Friday, October 8th, teachers Swinder Kaur and Deepak were shot dead. They were picked up from a lineup, and the shooters, before committing the crime, shouted the Allahu Akbar in front of the audience of the school. On Saturday, October 16th, which is today, 2 non-Kashmiri speaking residents were shot dead in the valley, one in Srinagar and one outside. And who are the likely killers? The likely killers, by self-admission, is the Resistance Front, which is an amalgam of local organic terrorists belonging to the category of Lashkar-e-Toiba and Hizbul Mujahideen. Lashkar, for all those you know, is a UN-sanctioned terrorist organization and also a foreign terrorist organization under the US State Department classification. Hizbul Mujahideen is also a foreign terrorist organization branded so by the US State Department. So essentially, these are very hardcore terrorist organizations who have now entrenched roots in the valley with using the sources of the local people involved. And these are the people who have grown from graduates from stone pelting crowd to terrorist insurgency in Kashmir, hoping to turn Kashmir into a caliphate, courtesy of the material and resources that they have received from Pakistan. Maybe my system says I have a low problem, but if you can hear me, let me know if you can't hear me.
Your voice is breaking a little bit, Vijayji.
Is it affecting the audio?
Yes.
A little bit.
I'm sorry.
Looks like there is a little internet. There's a lag in the internet. Something the speed.
Maybe let me see if I can get the video off.
Okay, we have switched off the video from the Let's see.
Does it make it any better?
Not much, actually.
Not much. In the meantime, what I would suggest it, if there is a problem coming in, I can, we can move on to Mr. Ramesh Raina, but then we will come back,
Come back
to
to
Mr. Pratap.
yeah,
Yeah,
Vijayji.
I can't hear. I can't hear. As I said, I'm having computer difficulties today. I don't know why. Maybe my signal is not strong enough here.
Yes, there is a lot of
No,
disturbance
That
coming in.
really causes
Yeah.
problems.
No problem, Vijayji. We'll come back to you.
Yeah. So why
let's
don't we?
get
Why don't we somebody else go forward,
That's what we'll
and
do.
maybe I can catch
Yes,
up later.
yes.
That's what
So
we're going to
we
do.
would definitely like to hear you, because there is a lot of in-depth information that we can get from you.
Yeah, certainly the signal became better the moment I said I'm going to leave.
Okay, that's better.
Vijayji,
Then you can carry on.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You can
Can you
also
hear me now?
turn your video off if you want to, and just be on
as I
audio.
said, see if that helps.
That's
Can you hear me?
absolutely fine.
You can hear
You're
me.
more
All
clear
right.
now. Yes.
Okay,
can
so
hear you.
what I was saying was that these local homegrown terrorists are essentially at the behest of material resources from Pakistan, essentially trying to create a caliphate, which is sort of nonsense. But that's the spirit of Afghanistan and the successes of the terrorists in Afghanistan, which is creating this problem now. And the spate of killings. Many reasons, security situation was improving. Tourists and pundits were coming back. Jobs promised by the government for internally displaced pundits but blocked until now are finally beginning to unfreeze, and new job recruitments drives are underway. Meaning more Kashmiri pundits will return. Government opened a web portal to facilitate recovery of agricultural lands and immovable properties that were illegally occupied by local usurpers. Again, caused them a discomfort, and pundits have begun to show up in large numbers at their ancestral temples in Kashmir, rekindling hopes of early return and rehabilitation. And the last but not the least, using social media, Kashmiri Muslims working for ISI overseas, that's outside of India, have called for elimination of non-local residents in the valley. And that's one of the reasons why some of the killed people are not local people, but nevertheless, they were working in the valley. Impact on pundits. Local valley-based pundits, I think there was considerable fear in the month of October, but it is slowly dissipating thanks to the immediate actions taken by the Modi Shah administration, which is a 360-degree contrast from the VP Singh Mufti regime in 1989. More terrorists involved in the killings have been located and neutralized. Most terrorists have been neutralized. A good number of terrorist sympathizers are being interrogated. Security has been substantially upgraded. For internally displaced pundits, that is the pundits that are outside the valley hoping to return, the anxiety, confusion, and mistrust about the future return and rehabilitation is rising. Considering the ground realities, the return will be impossible without creating one or perhaps 1 to 3 large, well-protected village clusters, townships, or smart hubs for sustainable living. And more importantly, it will take time. For Government of India, messages: this is not a time for knee-jerk reactions. The security situation and the political dispensation needs to be properly reassessed. Kashmiri politicians enjoying Indian security but spreading hate and communal disharmony must be held accountable. And I will tell you personally, I'm very disappointed that some of those politicians have lots of security and are running around, and quite frankly, government has not been able to contain them. Bottom line, valley-based pundits are extremely brave people who deserve our sympathy and support. They bore the brunt of Islamic violence in 1990s and are under similar situation now, but they are the guardians of the 5,000-year-old Kashmiri Pandit culture, ethos, and religious shrines in the Kashmir Valley. Displaced pundits have every right to return to the valley, but the return with honor, the Garwapsi, will require some bold actions by the government, from political empowerment of the disfranchised to the resettlement in one or more safe and secure, economically viable hubs. Collectively, we must all condemn the Islamic Jihad and terrorist killings in Kashmir in no uncertain terms. And finally, we call upon the Government of India to ensure the safety of Hindu, Sikh, and Christian minorities living in Kashmir. The Muslim majority community in Kashmir must show a real demonstrable commitment to uprooting the culture of Islamic Jihad that has crept in the valley encouraged by their political and religious leaders who are partly responsible for the mayhem since 1989. Thank you.
Josna ji, you are on mute.
Oh.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Vijay Sajawal. Quite a deep insight that you have given. And of course, yes, there is, danger looming large again with the, separatist forces coming in picture, with Afghanistan's, recent development and the terrorist activities that are gaining momentum in, Kashmir. And हम ये सोच रहे थे कि दिवाली मनाने के लिए इस बार तो कश्मीरी पंडित बहुत खुश होंगे, कोविड ने डराया कभी, उससे पहले ऑफ कोर्स अच्छी चीज ये थी कि 370 हटा आर्टिकल और एक फ्रीडम, एक अच्छी एक स्वतंत्रता, जो गूंज थी वो कश्मीरी हिंदुओं के पंडितों के दिल में दोबारा से गूंजी और उन्हें लगा कि हम अपनी मातृभूमि पे दोबारा जाएंगे और दिए जला पाएंगे। लेकिन फिर से ये काले जो बादल हैं डर के, दहशत के, ये शायद दोबारा से इंटरनेशनल कुछ कहीं ना कहीं कुछ प्लॉय है जो कि ये आ रहे हैं आगे और लोगों को डरा रहे हैं, कश्मीरियों को, कश्मीरी हिंदुओं को, ताकि वो दोबारा ना बस पाए। लेकिन आप जैसे सभी लोग जब जुड़ जाते हैं, ये जो ग्लोबल कश्मीरी डायस्पोरा है जो विश्व के अलग अलग देशों में बैठे हैं, आप सभी लोग, ये जो आपका दृढ़ निश्चय है, आप जानते हैं कि वो दहशत के दिन जब आप कश्मीर छोड़ के आए थे अपनी जन्मभूमि को और अब दूर बसे हुए हो लेकिन आज जुड़े हुए हो, ये सही पैशन जो है दोबारा से सॉल्यूशन तो लाएगा कश्मीर के लिए। हो सकता है देर हो रही है थोड़ी सी, पर सॉल्यूशन तो आएगा। अब मैं आपको ले चलती हूँ हमारे नेक्स्ट पैनलिस्ट रमेश रैना जी की तरफ। डॉक्टर रमेश रैना जो हैं, he definitely is the active person in India right now, based in New Delhi, ऑल इंडिया कश्मीरी समाज के प्रेसिडेंट हैं। रमेश जी, आप तो दिल्ली में बैठे हैं, किस तरीके की कम्युनिटी एंगेजमेंट आप करते हैं, एंड व्हाट इज योर एंगेजमेंट विद द गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया टू सीक द जस्टिस फॉर द कश्मीरी हिंदूज एंड कश्मीरी पंडित्स?
At the outset, I wish to extend my profound gratitude to you, Madam Archana Kakurji and her team, for giving me the opportunity to speak here. You see, our struggle is a multidimensional struggle. It's not focused on engagement with government of India alone or state government alone. We are engaged at different levels. You see, for us, more important is engagement with the civil society of India and with the civil society of Kashmir. When I mean that engagement with the civil society of India, that means people of India. And let me tell you, it is for the first time we see that people of India have expressed their outrage against what's happening. For the first time out of these 32 years, we have seen that government of India, both at the central level and at the local level, it has been a proactive stance. They have taken a proactive stand against. In fact, I would go a few notches higher up, that they have started with a zero tolerance towards terrorism. And while you're talking about what do we do, how do we engage with the various agencies? First is that ours is a sustained campaign. There has been an uninterrupted continuity of leading from the front, of talking and of meeting the powers that be from time to time. The first thing which many people must not be knowing, AIKS in 2006 put a writ petition, civil writ petition in the Supreme Court of India, and Justice Desai was the Chief Justice of Supreme Court of India, and it was a big issue for us whether Supreme Court of India would accept the writ petition from AIKS or not. And for that thing, we had urged the then Finance Minister of India, Mr. Arun Jaitley, and who appeared on behalf of AIKS for the first time, and that is how Supreme Court of India accepted the civil writ petition. Thereafter, we followed it up. We followed it up religiously, and Justice Desai at one point of time asked the government for an action taken report. And the Prime Minister's relief and rehabilitation package for migrants announced in early 2006 is directly linked with the Supreme Court of India asking for the action taken report. So that is the most important thing that has happened for Kashmiri Pandits. And we were religiously following that case till 2016, and many things happened because of the persuasion of Supreme Court of India. And finally, when Justice T.S. Thakur took over as Supreme Court Chief Justice, and he transferred the case to High Court of J&K, and it is at the instance of the High Court of J&K that J&K government started with a distress sale portal. And it is because of this distress sale portal, many things happen. And there have been quite a few beneficiaries also when their land was grabbed, so on and so forth. This is the most important achievement of All India Kashmiri Samaj to ensure that the rights of the displaced community are protected. Not only that, there are so many things. We have been pleading for a legitimate minority space for Kashmiri Pandits in the Valley of Kashmir. Now, what do we mean by the creation of a legitimate minority space for Kashmiri Pandits in the Valley? By creation of the legitimate minority space means that there is the whole of Kashmir is Islamized. It may not be Islamized, but it is fast going towards that. We have hardly few thousand of Kashmiri Pandit minorities left there in the valley. Though we have to understand that Kashmiri Pandit minorities constitute an important, they have an important factorial importance in the secular construct of the Valley of Kashmir. And killing alone is not that important to these terrorists as is to destroy and demolish the factorial importance of Kashmiri Pandits, and we must remember that. And to ensure that Kashmiri Pandits enjoy that factorial importance, we have been asking for the creation of a legitimate minority space for Kashmiri Pandits in the Valley of Kashmir. And as a first step towards that, we are looking for the creation of a minority commission in the Valley of Kashmir. Because we intend that the Kashmiri Pandits must be declared as reverse minorities, because there's a great dilemma in the Valley of Kashmir. The brute Muslim majority of Kashmir is being linked with the mainstream Muslim minority of India, thereby telling that you are a minority in India. And the abject minority Kashmiri Pandits are linked with the mainstream Hindu majority of India, therefore telling us that you are part of the majority community of India. So what does this mean? What does this imply? This implies that the Kashmiri Muslim enjoy both the majoritarian benefits and the minority benefits as well. While as Kashmiri Pandits are deprived of their own rights, not to talk of rights, one aspect is that we have been displaced, and another aspect is that we have been dispossessed of what belongs to us. We got our lands, we got our properties, but we are being killed as RSS stooges. The new epithets have been associated with the killings, that they are RSS stooges, they are traitors, they are so on and so forth. So look what happened when Rakesh Pandita, chairman municipal committee of Tral, was killed, and his killing was owned by People's Anti-Fascist Front, and the press release of Anti-Fascist Front read, "The cadres of Anti-Fascist Front neutralized a fascist Hindu extremist Rakesh Pandit in Tral. This extremist was not only involved in creating a network of informers, but was also involved in drug trafficking and other immoral activities." These are the epithets that are being attached to the minority killings in the Valley of Kashmir. Only very recently, before Mr. Bindru was killed, there was an attack on desecration of Bargashaka Mandir in Mattan. What was the aim behind that? Apart from this terrorism, there's a cultural terrorism also. Cultural terrorism starts with the demolition of our spiritual centers, with our temples, with our religious places. And apart from securing the the survival of residual Kashmiri Pandits in the valley of Kashmir. AIKS too is involved in ensuring that the
Mr. Ramesh Raina.
In the meanwhile, Jyotsna, we have Mr. Shuddha Prakash. He has joined us as a panelist. So I'm going to welcome him.
Sure.
So while Mr. Ramesh gets his audio back. So thank you so much, Mr. Shuddha Prakash ji, for joining with us today. Is he in?
We see his, presence.
Yes.
But the video is not on.
Namaskar. There we go. Namaskar, Mr. Singh. कैसे हैं? Can you hear us? आप mute पे हैं.
Can you please unmute yourself?
You are still on mute, Mr. Prakash. Oh, there we go.
Anyway,
can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear. We can certainly hear you. Thank you so much for joining in. So Mr. Shuddha Prakash is joining us from Long Island in New York, and he obviously represents the broader community of Hindus in US. Also, maybe his perspective from the Sikh community in Srinagar. We know that the Sikh community was really hit very hard during the 1947 partition. Thousands and thousands got massacred, killed. And a small community of the Sikhs, our brothers, they decided to, they have been living in the valley, and they decided to stay back in 1990. But ever since, they have been targeted, killed, massacred, as have the other minorities been. So their voice is our voice, and we are obviously one single family. So Mr. Prakash, thank you so much for joining in. We'll call you on later on to get your perspective on the condemnation of these killings. Thank you so much. And Jyotsna, you carry it on, please.
Am I still on? Am I still on?
Sure, Mr. Ramesh Raina. I think.
So maybe for a few more minutes.
Yes.
Okay,
you can speak and close it.
Okay.
Yes, you have 2 more minutes, and then yes, we will proceed.
Right. Just few minutes more. I would like to respond to Madam Archanaji, who said, what has to be the message of this program? I think the message of, we have to give 2 messages. One message is that we exist. The message of this today's webinar must be that we exist. When we say we exist, it has a large connotation. Connotation would mean that we are not going to give up so easily, because Kashmir belongs to us and we belong to Kashmir. Therefore, my personal, I don't know how other panelists would take it, but the core message of this webinar must be we exist. Why? Why do we say we exist? Because Kashmir is the core constituency of Kashmiri Pandits. The day we lose this core constituency of Kashmiri Pandits, we get assimilated in the broad main Hindu stream of India, and there would be no Kashmiri Pandit thereafter. Let me quote an example. When Hindus from Lahore used to come to India during pre-partition days, their identity was that main Lahore ka Hindu hu. When somebody would, some Hindu would come from Rawalpindi to India, his identity was that main Pindi ka Hindu hu. अगर कोई सिंध से आता था, his identity would be that मैं सिंध का हिंदू हूँ. After partition, there is no Hindu from Pindi, there is no Hindu from Lahore, there is no Hindu from Sindh. Everybody is a Hindu. So our identity is Kashmiri Pandits. Therefore, we need to retain Kashmir as our core constituency. I know I'm taking much time. So with these few words, I thank you very much. God bless you all. But I personally feel that the message that should flow from this webinar is that we exist. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you so much. It's a very powerful message. Certainly. Thank you so much.
थैंक यू सो मच रमेश जी, आपने अच्छे इनपुट्स दिए. और अब हम चलेंगे हमारे नेक्स्ट पैनलिस्ट मिसेस सुहाग शुक्ला की तरफ. शी इज द फाउंडर ऑफ इंडो अमेरिकन फाउंडेशन. काफी एक्टिव हैं, कम्युनिटी लीडर हैं और बहुत कुछ कर रही हैं, अपनी काबिलियत से सही मैसेज इंडियन कम्युनिटी के लिए देती हैं और बहुत कुछ करती हैं। तो सुहाग जी, वेलकम एंड थैंक यू फॉर जॉइनिंग अस। सबसे पहले तो यही पूछना चाहूंगी कि ऑफ कोर्स जब आप जैसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस इन कश्मीरी डायस्पोरा के साथ में जुड़ती हैं, कश्मीरी हिंदूज के साथ में, कश्मीरी पंडित के साथ में, तो एक अलग तरीके का जो जज्बा है और एक जो स्ट्रेंथ उनको मिलती है, मोरल स्ट्रेंथ मिलती है, वो बहुत अच्छी होती है और वो दिख रही है यहाँ पर। क्योंकि क्या था कि अब तक तो कश्मीरी जो थे शायद अलग थलग थे बहुत सालों तक, लोगों को पता भी नहीं था कि उनकी स्टोरी क्या है। इनफैक्ट मेरा जब इंटरफेस हुआ था डॉक्टर कोकरू से आज से 3-4 साल पहले, तो इट वाज अबाउट द कमेमोरेशन ऑफ द जनवरी 19th, यस 1990 में जो भी हुआ था त्रासदी, उसके बारे में बात हुई थी। तब पता चला कि कितना कुछ दुख से गुजरे हैं हम सभी हिंदू जो हैं। जब आप हिंदू अमेरिकन फाउंडेशन के करता धरता है, कहीं ना कहीं हिंदुओं में यूनिटी जो है ना, वो अभी आई नहीं है तरीके से। तो खैर उस पर बात करेंगे। पहले तो आप बताइए कि आपका कैसा इन्वॉल्वमेंट है इनके साथ में, आप क्या कर रहे हैं, क्या मैसेज आप देना चाहते हैं और आपको क्या स्टेप्स लेने चाहिए एज एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इनको सपोर्ट देने के लिए, इन ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को सपोर्ट देने के लिए जो कि कश्मीर के लोगों को रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं, उनके दुख को जानते हैं, खुद भी उस दुख से गुजरे हैं।
Thank you, Josna ji, and thank you, Archana ji, for bringing us all together for this very critical conversation. And my respects to the esteemed co-panelists that I have the honor of speaking with. I'd like to first start, if it's okay, with the chanting of chapter 2, verse 23 of the Bhagavad Gita for our fallen brothers and sisters in Kashmir, and to also remind all of us that no threats of violence can kill what drives our collective righteous struggle. So, Nainam chindanti shastrani, Nainam dahati pavakaha, Na chainam kledayantyapo, Na shoshayati marutaha. The eternal within and without us can never be cut by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by wind. So the Hindu American Foundation is a US-based education and advocacy organization educating the public about Hindus and Hinduism and advocating for policies and practices that ensure the well-being of all people on the planet. Since 2003, we've sought to amplify the horrific human rights atrocities faced by Hindu and other religious minorities around the world. So of course, the story of Kashmiri Pandits and the untold suffering faced in the past in the form of institutionalized discrimination, targeted killings, rape, land and home grabs, terror and cleansing, and the continued pain that we're witnessing today is one that we've highlighted to policymakers, reporters, observers, and the public at large, especially here in the United States. Our message has been pretty simple, that the human rights of Kashmir's indigenous Hindus and other minorities must be a priority for the United States on par with trade, security, healthcare, climate change, and people-to-people relations. And also equally important, that the destabilizing role of Pakistan in the region is a clear and present danger to American interests, to Indian interests, and the international community's interests. So how do we educate and how do we advocate? We've been doing this through op-eds, short films, official reports, public testimony, vigils, and congressional briefings and speaker series, which are all made more credible and compelling with the voices of people from within the Kashmiri Pandit community and lending their expertise and experience. And that, to me, is a really good example of what I think is most critical in our pursuit for peace and justice in the region, and that is partnerships. Our voices may be loud, but they're too often going unheard. But when we come together, they cannot be ignored. So the first and most natural partnership that merits continued investment of time and resources is within the Kashmiri Pandit community across the diaspora, whether it's Kashmiris in the UK, in Australia, in the United States, coming together to celebrate the culture and celebrate survival is critically important, because if we don't continue to tell the stories of what was faced especially in the late 1980s and 1990s, there's not going to be much hope for a solution. And in fact, what we'll see is a repetition of those horrors. When cleansed from a sacred geography, the teachings and practices, cultures and stories of survival can only live on through deliberate efforts by the inheritors of these unique and beautiful traditions. And so the work of organizations like Kashmiri Overseas Association and the Indo-American Kashmir Forum is truly commendable in this regard. And those are two organizations that we really value our partnership with. The next partnership is, as you mentioned, Josnaji, between the broader Hindu community. And yes, we have been divided, but at the same time, I would say that over the past decade, I've really been heartened to see Hindus of all backgrounds coming together to speak out in unison on issues that are shared, but also lending their voices to the specific and unique issues and challenges that are faced by different communities within the larger Hindu family. And what binds us is a vast dharmic civilizational ethos. As Adi Shankaracharya showed us, from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, there's a thread that unifies us, and we must never lose sight of that. So we need to continue working together on an ethos of oneness, of truth, of non-harming, discernment, and non-attachment, not only to advocate for the issues that harm us, but to also provide inspiration and a solution to other communities around the world that are suffering. And finally, one of the areas that we've been focusing on, and I've been really pleased to see within the broader community, is building bridges outside of the Hindu community. That we need that type of amplification, because otherwise what happens is we're speaking in an echo chamber. And,
Absolutely.
you know, if we begin to partner with other people who have faced their own cleansings and genocides, like the Jewish community or Armenian Christians, which I've been seeing a lot of, I know we've been doing that, or people who are committed to democracy and peace, these friendships that we can build and are being built across the country between Hindus and non-Hindus are also critical to the end goal of justice and peace. So, you know, to Archanaji's question, I think I can go back to, you know, what our simple message is just on the policy front, which is that we need to do more about the horrific human rights conditions in India, and the international community needs to come together to condemn the actions of the Pakistani government. But on the grassroots level, it's about having our voices heard and sharing our stories. One last experience that I'll share is, you know, our board member, Rajiv Pandit, who's also a member of the Kashmiri Pandit community and very active, came to one of the summer programs. And, you know, one of the goals that we had was trying to capture some of the stories of people who are eyewitnesses to the atrocities in 1989 and 1990. And for many, there was a reluctance because it's been buried away. And I know that it's difficult to bring these things up, but it's so critical to share these stories within the family, grandparents to grandchildren. And so that would be another message that I would send, so that we, and not just share with your children and grandchildren, but also share with the rest of us so that we can lend our support. So thank you again for hosting this very critical.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sohag. It is wonderful. Some of the points that you did touch on. One of the things I want to tell the members who have joined today is that Sohag and us KOA is having a candlelight vigil today at 6 p.m. in Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And we are doing it jointly with the Hindu community in the tri-state area. And of course, Sohag, as always, has volunteered to help there. So thank you, Sohag, for that. When we come to, there's a question which has been asked on the chats, is how do we stop the local terrorism? Well, of course, a lot of things have to be done locally. The government has to step in, and that is their responsibility and their job. But as a world community, what we need to do is, one, unite together against this menace, which is the terrorism. Terrorism has not only affected Kashmiri Pandits, It is a global problem. So we have to unite. That's number one. Second is connect and tell your story, educate your neighbors, educate your broader community, tell them what has happened to you. I can tell you is that many in India probably don't even know what's happening in Kashmir right now. Talking with them, holding, local, community affairs, having some sit downs with the community people. We have to start doing that. It's everyone's responsibility. And thirdly, as Sohag said, that we have to share our story. We cannot bury those stories. We've had a tendency of keeping quiet, not letting anyone know, including our children for that matter, because we want to shield them. But there is no shield from terrorism. We have to tell them what we have gone through. So with that, Jyotsna ji, I will let you continue the program. Thanks again, Sohag.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kopru, and thank you, Sohag ji. Because you are actively involved with the congressional candidates as well, my, personal, little suggestion would be that how about engaging larger strength of Hindus to get into active advocacy to educate the larger segment of congressional candidates and congressional representatives and the senators, so that there are legit restrictions put against the terror sponsoring countries.
Absolutely.
Because,
if I can just take one more second to plug that. Sorry, I forgot. But if people, you're right that expressing our voices to Congress, we as an organization cannot do it alone. And so while we have congressional briefings and submit official testimony, we also have an Action Alert Center at www.hinduamerican.org. Just in the last few weeks, we were pushing for legislation that would deem Pakistan as a state sponsor of terror. These are little things, and not little things, but each one of our voices can come together, even though it feels like it's little, just one person clicking a button and having their voice heard, but collectively they make an impact. So there's a lot that people can do at the individual level in terms of advocating. So I would encourage people to come to the website to see the types of resolutions and legislation that we're supporting. And there will be a few coming up in the next few months focused on really putting attention on Pakistan and its role in the region. So thanks for reminding me about that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, we'll proceed further with our next panelist, Mr. Ashok Pandit, a very well-known figure from Mumbai, India, well-known filmmaker, television director, and a firebrand social activist. He is the, currently you must have seen him into various discussions on Republic TV as well. And he's currently serving as the president of the Indian Film and Television Directors Association. Ashok ji वो आवाज हैं जो बुलंद हैं, निडर हैं और ऐसे गढ़ में बैठे हैं जहां आतंकी फोर्सेस जो हैं बड़ा कंट्रोल दबाए रखती हैं, लेकिन वहां फिर भी निडर हुए अपनी आवाज को उठाते हैं और सही न्याय की बात करते हैं. अशोक जी, वेलकम. स्टेज इज योर्स. आप क्या बोलना चाहेंगे, आप बोलिए.
Unmute.
Please unmute yourself. Yes.
We are muted since last 31 years, so अपने आप को unmute करने की आदत जो है वो अभी करनी पड़ेगी अपने आप को. Anyway, thank you, Archana ji, and all the panelists, respected panelists, who have been slogging, working. We have seen Vijay Sazabul Sahab from our days when he was there on the floor right from beginning. Every one of us, we have been putting in our efforts for this cause which we are fighting for. This is a cause for the country. Well, we all know what's happening in Kashmir. We all know the situation in Kashmir. We also know how much the minority community, the Kashmiri Hindus and the Kashmiri Pandits suffered. And I have been seeing this since the time of the Exodus, when I was there in Jammu and Kashmir, where when I shot this entire Exodus, and I made a documentary film called "And the World Remains Silent," which is the only visual proof which we have the real proof which we have visually as far as our genocide is concerned. Now, there are certain things which I think one should. I personally feel this is the way I conduct myself. अपने आप से अगर हम झूठ ना बोले तो ज्यादा बेटर है. We know that we have a very strong leadership. We have full faith in the Honorable Prime Minister of ours. We all know that the only person who can save this country is Mr. Narendra Modi. We also know that we are lucky and we are fortunate that we had, that the entire earlier regime was destroyed, demolished, and as we hear in our epics also that जब कठिनाइयां आती हैं, जब देश तकलीफ में आता है तो एक कृष्ण भगवान पैदा होता है और देश को बचाता है. और ये हमारे साथ 2014 में हुआ. Having said all that, I have no qualms about it, and I'm a strong believer of this man as a Prime Minister of this country. But I have lot of complaints. I have a lot of truthfulness which we can share among ourselves also. You see, Sajawul Saab said that Kashmiri Pandits were starting to return back, and this package and that package were working on, and things were working and all that. I personally feel, as a person who has been observing things, who have been touched, that this all is a farce. All those people who went to Kashmir are employees under Prime Minister's package deal, who are employees. The families are in Jammu. If the woman is working, she's there alone, or husband comes and goes. If the man is working, husband is working, the family is in Jammu. And they are living there like as if they are living in jails. All those areas wherever these employees of Kashmiri Hindus are living are exactly living like in a prison, and they are in pathetic condition. They are in sad condition. And I've been in touch with them. I've been in regular touch with them. So there is a problem. There is a problem of not speaking the truth to your own self and touching the right chord. Now, there are innumerous issues in this country. It's not only Kashmiri Hindus. You see, in a country where a Dalit is hanged in the capital of this country, in the center of the city, in your eyes, his hand is cut and thrown on the street, and there is a celebration. His body is hanged on a barrack, and there's a celebration going around him. The police guy is standing there, and this entire thing has been shot, and it's all over on television channels. So what do we say? This is exactly the same thing what happened to Kashmiri Hindus in Kashmir. This Nihangs, the way they have killed this person who's supposed to be are the farmers. They are farmers on the strike. They're on the streets. They've captured the entire city. They entered the Lal Killa. They created a riot there. They've taken over the entire city. So what is the government doing? This is my question as a citizen of this country. So why after this killing, why they have seized, the entire city of Delhi is under siege the way Kashmir was under siege. According to me, the day a terrorist wants to kill somebody, he will kill. And this is what is happening. He selected Bindru, they selected Ajay Pandita, they selected Sagir today, they selected Ashwini Kumar today. So they're going on killing. It's very difficult. The strategy has changed. The model of operandi has changed. They are now with pistols in a ferry. They just enter a public place, they kill, and they run away into the lanes and violence of Kashmir. So it's very difficult to control. I'm being very honest about it. I might be sounding harsh, but there's a pain which is going on in my heart since a long time. We are desperate. I was in Kashmir 15 days back. I was there for 10 days. I know that the government is working day in and day out to see to it that there's job opportunities. They're making tourist villages. There are a lot of programs on ground. They're trying the level best. But the point is, when you sit after 370 eradication, after 35 eradication, everything was out. We are all celebrating. We were happy about it. Only person who could do it is Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. It's fine. It's back. It's a great thing which has happened to us and for the country. It's not only for Kashmiri Hindus, it's for entire country that this cancer was operated upon and thrown away. We are very happy about it. But I also want to ask that thousands of Kashmiri Hindus are languishing in Jakti camp in Jammu. Do we know the conditions of Kashmiri Hindus in Jakti camp? There is not a proper hospital there. There is not a proper school there. If somebody falls ill, he has to travel for 13-14 kilometers. Who is responsible? What is the problem? Why are we not looked after or seen as a person? And then after you take over, 370 is all out and all that, the first meeting the government has is with Gupta gang. You had to have meetings with them. You should have not put them in jails. You have given them importance once again. आपने उनको जिंदा कर दिया वापस. Why was the first meeting of the government not held with Kashmiri Hindus, with Sikhs, with all those people who think that they are Indians, who are proud of being an Indian? Why? There's a question I think I as a citizen have the right to ask. You are still not out of the frame or out of that complex that this Gupta gang, all those people who are responsible for destruction of Kashmir, for terrorism in Kashmir, for killings, rapes, destruction of temples in Kashmir, how can you sit with them across the table and try to, to find out their viewpoints? Who are they? They're terrorists. When the entire government sat, my Prime Minister, my beloved Prime Minister, my strongest Prime Minister, sat in front of Farooq Abdullah or Mehbooba Mufti or all those, people, I felt ashamed. I felt hurt. I felt sad.
Ashokji.
Frustrated. It was painful for me. That it is not the right thing.
Your emotions,
so
we understand that.
Archana ji, if you want me to, if it's hurting you, or if it's making you uncomfortable, I'm walking out.
No, one suggestion we need from you. आपके जो emotions है ना, इसी पे मैं चाहती हूँ, आप इसका solution भी बताएं थोड़ा.
मैं बताऊंगा आपको solution आने तो दीजिए मुझे, मैडम, आने तो दीजिए. ये solution ऐसे नहीं निकलता. ये कोई बुखार सर्दी नहीं हुई है कि आपको कश्मीर के इशू पे कश्मीरी हिंदुओं के साथ बैठना पड़ेगा. आज तक आपने एक भी मीटिंग कश्मीरी हिंदुओं के साथ की है? आपने कश्मीरी हिंदुओं के साथ, रमेश रैना के साथ, विजय सदावाल के साथ, अर्चना कपूर के साथ, सुशील पंडित के साथ, इतने सारे बुद्धिजीवी लोग हैं हमारे जिन्होंने सफर किया, उनके साथ बैठ के आपने स्ट्रेटेजीज अपने प्लान किए? नहीं किए. बिकॉज आपको लगता है ये तो हमारे ही है, ये जाएंगे कहां? इनको बुलाओ जो हमारे नहीं है. और ये हकीकत है. कश्मीर के पॉलिटिशियंस की मानसिकता, कश्मीर के टेररिस्टों की मानसिकता, कश्मीर की मेजॉरिटी की मानसिकता को सिर्फ कश्मीरी हिंदू ही समझ सकता है और कोई नहीं समझ सकता. उनको क्रॉस क्वेश्चनिंग सिर्फ कश्मीरी हिंदू कर सकता है. बिठाइए टेबल पर हमारे उनके सामने, आप देखें कश्मीर की प्रॉब्लम्स कैसे सॉल्व होती है. लेकिन आप वो नहीं करते. तो मेरी अपील है वेबिनार के थ्रू, हमारी डिमांड में यह जाना चाहिए कि द इन्वॉल्वमेंट ऑफ कश्मीरी हिंदूज एंड ऑल दोज इंडियंस all over the country, not only Kashmiri Hindus, who feel strongly about Kashmir and India as such, should be made a party to the discussion, that especially Kashmiri Hindus. And I also demand in this webinar, or whatever response we are going to make, is that Jakti should be taken on a first priority. Every Kashmiri Hindu living in Jakti should be taken care of. Their education, their medical, this thing. अर्चना जी आपको बताएंगी ये पेंडेमिक के टाइम पे किस तरीके से अर्चना जी ने और केओ ने कदम से कदम मिलाकर वहां पर लोगों की हेल्प की है. क्या जरूरत है? ये तो जम्मू है ना, ये कश्मीर नहीं है, ये जम्मू है. कितने सीनियर बीजेपी के लीडर्स जक्ति गए, मुझे आप लिख के बताइए. सो दिस डिसकंटेंट और दिस टेकन फॉर ग्रांटेड एटीट्यूड जो है, ये हमारी प्रॉब्लम है सबसे बड़ी. सो आई एम अघास्ट. I'm absolutely. It's not that I'm not hopeful. I'm a follower of this government or this leadership. But the point is, I as a Kashmiri Hindu, I as an Indian, I as a person who believes in Indianness, that ethics or entire culture of India, I am not taken seriously I am not me as individual. What I'm trying to say is the entire community as such. We are the person who are capable and have the capacity of seeing to it that Kashmiri Muslim terrorism and the Kashmiri Islamic terrorism can be demolished if our brains and if we are involved in day-to-day activities of Kashmir issue. That's what I want to say.
Thank you, Ashokji. Thank you so much. Just a comment on Ashokji's, comments that he has put forth is that when 370 was abrogated, you have seen that worldwide Kashmiri pundits came to, give Prime Minister Modi accolades here, everywhere. We had so much faith. We had so much faith that now things are going to be set right for us. There will finally be justice, but it's been 2 years and we've been waiting. So it has created a discontent within the Kashmiri Pandit community that what has happened to us. The second point is the appeasement of the same people who have brought us to this point, the same politicians of the valley who probably don't want things to change. So the government is again engaging with the same policies. Thirdly, what is very important as a Kashmiri migrant here is that most of us we have worked hard and we have done well for ourselves in the past 30 years. There, however, is a community in Jagti. We still have thousands of people living there who are still impoverished. That is the duty of the government first. So Jagti is very close to our hearts, but first and foremost, it should be the priority for the government in Jammu and Kashmir that they be looked after. Why are they still languishing? Why isn't there a school there? Why isn't there a hospital there? When we can pour money in Kashmir Valley and create, world-class hospitals and world-class education system, they have every amenity there. Why is a Kashmiri Pandit still languishing in the camp in Jagti, Mutti, Nagrota? There still are existing 7 or 8 campsites there, thousands of people living there. And as Ashokji said, it is, of course, my moral obligation and the moral obligation of all Kashmiri leaders to help them. But it is the duty of the government to make sure that they are taken care of first. Thank you, Ashokji.
Thank you, Archana ji. Valid points. Ashok ji, jo krodh aur akrosh hai, the anger within, that speaks 1,000 words, of course, the emotions. And of course, I wish government listens to, your questions properly and, addresses them. And of course, every Indian should feel the heat, the Hindus or Muslims or whosoever staying in India, living in India, the citizens of India. So far, they are away. They feel that Kashmiris are different people, the Kashmiri Hindus are different segment. Oh, बहुत बुरा हुआ बेचारों के साथ. No, ये आपके साथ भी हो सकता है, किसी के साथ भी हो सकता है. समय बदलने में देर नहीं लगती. जिस तरह से एक लेफ्टिस्ट एजेंडा है, जिस तरह से एक्स्ट्रा सेक्युलर थॉट प्रोसेस है हिंदूज का, इंडियंस का, ये कहीं ना कहीं आपको तोड़ देगा. देश बढ़ता चला जाएगा. तो ये तो उनको जगने के लिए समय चाहिए और शायद जग जाना चाहिए सही टाइम पर एंड आपके साथ जुड़ना चाहिए, क्योंकि ये दर्द किसी के साथ भी हो सकता है. तो कहीं भी लिंचिंग हो जाती है, कहीं भी मार दिया जाता है. और जो दिल्ली में हुआ, आपने सही बोला कि ये किस तरीके की दादागिरी दिखाई गई है. This is not acceptable for sure. Well,
Jyotsna, just a request, Mr. Shid Prakash ji needs to leave.
मैं उन्हीं के पास जा रही हूँ सीधा.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
हम शुद्ध प्रकाश जी से मिलते हैं. He is connected with us from Long Island, United States of America. शुद्ध जी, आपके विचार इस समय बहुत जरूरी बन जाते हैं. Of course, जो दिल्ली में हुआ, अब ठीक है, गुस्सा है लोगों में, और उसके साथ में क्योंकि सिख कम्युनिटी बहुत तरीके से जुड़ी हुई है हिंदूज के साथ में. सिखों ने जो बलिदान दिए हैं हिंदुओं को बचाने के लिए मुगल राज्य में, वो अपने आप में एक अपना they have a very deep connect. So Shudh ji, your take, please. Is it there?
Could you unmute yourself, Shudh ji, please? Here he is.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I
Shivji.
was having hard
No
time
problem.
unmuting.
No problem.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Is that okay now for me to
Yes.
speak?
We can hear
Absolutely.
you.
Would like to hear from you now, Shubji. Please, your comments.
All right. Thank you so much. It's it's an honor to be on this esteemed panel, and for the opportunity, I thank Mohanji and all of you. I just want to say a few things. We can, just like Jyotsna ji very correctly mentioned to the last speaker, that let's talk about solution also. We know the problem. I want to share with you a little bit of my experience we had in Punjab, where not as bad situation like Kashmir, but we had pretty bad terrible days and weeks.
Shubji, sorry to interrupt. Shubji, आप शायद हवा बहुत है. Is there any place where you can go inside and escape this wind, because आवाज हवा की भी आ रही है आपके साथ?
Oh, okay.
Your words mean a lot, and we would like to hear them properly. Indeed,
Okay.
I understand you're outside, so
yeah, let me see.
or maybe if you can sit inside a car or somewhere, you know, तो ज़्यादा अच्छे तरीके से हम सुन पाएंगे आपको.
All right. Can you give me that next time then?
Absolutely. मैं अभी जो है क्या कहते हैं संजय पेशेंट जी के पास जा रही हूँ. संजय जी from United Kingdom.
Thank you.
मैं जुड़ती हूँ आपके साथ क्योंकि समय बहुत कम है और हमें सुनना तो सबको ये बहुत बड़ी इवेंट है आज की, और सभी एमिनेंट हमारे साथ पैनलिस्ट हैं, स्पीकर्स हैं. इनकी आवाज जो है, इनके जो शब्द हैं, ये बहुत गहरे हैं और ये बहुत दूर तक जाने चाहिए. तो संजय पेशेंट फ्रॉम यूनाइटेड किंगडम. संजय जी, वेलकम. आप भी काफी अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं. You are the president of Kashmiri Pandit Organization in UK. Would like to hear from you. और किस तरह का कम्युनिटी कनेक्ट आपका यूके में है? यूके में भी हालात जो हैं काफी कुछ अलग होते जा रहे हैं. अब मैं ज्यादा तो नहीं बोलना चाहती, बट आप जानते हैं किस तरह से इस्लामिक कंट्रोल हो रहा है कुछ जगह का, कुछ किस तरह से हिंदू इवेंट्स के ऊपर भी, यू नो, जैसे पिछले साल क्या हुआ था, इंडिपेंडेंस डे सेलिब्रेशन की बात थी. आई थिंक एक वायलेंट हमला हुआ था हिंदूज के ऊपर काउंसिलेट के आगे. तो प्लीज योर टेक प्लीज.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank you, Archana ji and KO, for giving me a chance to speak on this panelist. Ashok ji rightly nailed it down. I think I would like to add few points here. Today, it was a Kashmir. Now it's not, terrorism is not confined to Kashmir anymore. It's an international, it has spread internationally. Yesterday, we just saw in UK, one of the Conservative MPs was stabbed and he died. And few days back in Norway, bow and arrow with 5 people died. So it's not confined to Kashmir. So I would like to use this forum to give a wake-up call to international community that terrorism should be the topmost priority in the United Security Council. Rest, everything has to follow. Because if we do not wake up now, it was a Kashmir, it is now in the UK, it is now in the Norway, it has happened in the Paris. Very soon it will spread in every nook and corner of the world. So it is very important that using this forum, that international community has to come together and condemn and isolate Pakistan and make sure that they are held responsible for breeding the terrorism in their land, sponsoring and the terrorism. So that is the first message I would like to give. Second, what are we expecting from the government? So as Ashok ji mentioned, who is in the Kashmir now? The people who are forced to go, or they are forced to go because they don't have both ends meet. I'm here in UK. A lot of us are, most, as Archana ji said, are settled, but the people who are going back to Kashmir because they don't have the both ends meet. And what is government doing about their security? They are going there, they're getting killed. We are guinea pigs for them. So I strongly urge, yes, this is the only government we have a faith in, that they can do something for our community. But we should not be used as guinea pigs, that because we don't have the both ends meet, and they have to go, they have to feed their family. The government is not. Why they have to, if they have to go there, why government is not ensuring their security? Aakhir kab tak ye chalega? So the government has to give us some assurance, making sure that none of our community members, for that matter, any Hindus or minorities get killed again in Kashmir. How long is going to continue? So this is we have a faith. Yes, we have a faith in the Modi government, but they have to wake up. They have to wake up and listen to us. As Ashokji said, all of us, all of the members, all the key stakeholders were invited, except the main stakeholders who were thrown out. We were not even invited. So we were taken for granted. ये तो हमारे साथ ही है, but it's not like that. We have to be heard. So that is my message to the government of India. Yes, I would like to add one key aspect here. Yes, for our community, Kashmiri communities and Hindus in general, it's a high time is running out. We have to get united, particularly Kashmiri Pandits. We have so many organizations, and sometimes when we go to the government also, they do not know whom to listen, because we go with our own agenda. So we are running out of the time. So it's high time that we get united, and Archanaji has taken the lead. Let's get united, not only in India, internationally, and come up with a clear objective, what demands we should be putting in front of the government, and those pragmatic demands. Not about the land, and the killing of any person cannot be related to the land grabbing, property, this security and the safety of our community members should be the topmost priority of the government. So I know there are lots of panelists, so I would stop myself here and give other panelists to speak.
So much,
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I hope you are in good communication with the government of India, the consulate members, of course, to convey the message, because personally I feel when you are sitting outside India and in a leadership capacity, they definitely will hear you, and your words would mean a lot as well. And yes, they cannot take you for granted. Very valid point he raised there. बहुत ही soft stance हो जाता है when they say, oh, they are with us only. No, you are with them only so far. They hear you and they support you and they solve your problems.
Yeah, well, today we were in front of the Pakistan High Commission. We did the demonstration. We're going to take all Hindu organizations. We're going to take a delegation to the High Commission of India in next week or so.
Thank you
so much.
Thanks.
And
I really
we'll
appreciate your work. I think we can give the Mr. Mistry, because it's quite late in Dubai right now.
Sure, please.
So then we can go back to Mr. Shuddha Prakash, if you don't mind.
So Mr. Anil Mistry, yes, he is from United Arab Emirates.
From Dubai. And it's quite late in
Dubai. And Anil ji, definitely. आप एक ऐसे देश में बैठे हैं, you are sitting in such a country which does not let Pakistanis immigrate there. तो आपसे तो सुनना बनता है, बताइए.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me time to talk over with so many elite panelists over here. So I feel delighted to be in this group where Mr. Vijay Sajwal, Mr. Ashok Pandita, Pashin Saab, and all these guys are there, because I have never had a chance to meet them, but this is where virtually we are meeting with all these panelists over here. So thanks for giving me this chance. Well, I was listening to all the panelists so far, and obviously there cannot be anything which can be taken away from what all they said. So I'm sitting in a country where, well, exactly whatever I speak in my personal capacity. So it is something that law doesn't permit over here. So I'm talking in my personal capacity over here. Now, speaking of what Mr. Pandita said, Mr. Pandit said, or Mr. Pashin said, I left Kashmir when I was 16 years old. That's the time when I was actually, I finished my matriculation, which is like 10th standard, and I was asked to leave Kashmir. So after maybe 1.5 years, I could clear my 11th standard, because that's when the results were not out and we were asked, okay, it will take some time, blah, blah, blah. And then it started like the journey for us as migrants or internally displaced people, whatever you call it as. So all this journey started from there onwards. What I used to see when I went to Bangalore for my studies, what I used to see is that people outside Kashmir never knew about our problems. They were never aware of what has happened to a Kashmiri Hindu, because for them, Kashmir was all about Kashmiri Muslims. I think 99% of the population was Muslims, and then they were only talking about what's happening to Kashmiri Muslims, and we were never considered to be a part or the parcel of the Kashmiri, from the Kashmir community, you know. So when I went over there, I was really shocked to see that nobody knew about our problem. Nobody knew what's happened to us in way back in 1990. So I personally had to basically educate them and say, boss, I'm not that community. I'm a community who has been thrown out of my own country, out of my own place, my birthplace, where I was born. So that's where my journey with this started, you know. So when going further, I went because a lot of things associated with our roots with the Sangh Parivar and all that stuff. We were doing shakhas in Kashmir, and that's how. When in 1990 the whole episode started, so me and one of my uncle was told, okay, boss, it's enough for you to be in Kashmir, and somebody in some mosques just gave us a diktat that we have to leave the country, or we have to leave that place. So that's how it all started. So when sitting here today, when I'm listening to all the panelists over here, it's imperative for me to understand, yes, this has happened to many of us, and still there are many of us who are still languishing in those camps. But I used to visit, and I trust me, I never had courage to talk to those people out there, because the condition that I saw them in, it was pathetic. It was pathetic. That's the only word I can use. As Mr. Pandit said, rightly so, there are no facilities which were given to them, even by the current government, which is in power. I don't know why, but yes, I am a full supporter of Modi government. I support Mr. Modi, Mr. Shah to the core. I'm an RSS guy from the core, so I just support them. But I have seen there are a few things which I just want to bring to this forum, right? Our community in current scenario, we don't get that sense of security as of now, you know. When few people are being targeted and killed in the name of whatever religion or jihad or whatever you call it as, but then where's the security? Our people in Kashmir are losing that sense of security. If you see people who were killed in 1990, even now, the justice has not been delivered to them. The dispensation of justice has taken 32 years, and still nobody is talking about them. There are people who were my neighbors in Kashmir who were killed, just called out by their friends and killed, right? What has happened to them? Is the justice delivered to them even after 32 years? Nothing has been done. And now, when this case was taken to Supreme Court, it was said, oh, sorry, we don't have any clues and proofs and all, so the cases cannot be opened. Where is the justice system? So where is the sense of security going to come into our people? How do you think that Kashmir is going to go back to the normalcy, what it used to be? To me, I don't think so that's going to happen. I don't see that's happening.
Getting it.
You know, so first, I fully endorse what Mr. Pandit has said. I think we should talk more about bringing up the quality of life for our camp dwellers, our guys who are actually there in our camps in Muthi, Jagati, and all that stuff. Okay, and more awareness should be made among the country, within our country or outside the country, that, you know, globally, when people should understand what has happened to the Kashmiri Pandits. And we as Pandits, or we as the Kashmiri, we have to get up and this is a wake-up call for all of us. The killing of Mr. Bindru, we condemn that kind of killing. And even for all the minorities, people who were killed in Kashmir in the last couple of maybe weeks, we condemn that. And our focus should be more on educating people across. I'm not talking about even only Hindus. Why Hindus only? It should be globally, people should be educated about what's happening over there. And there should be a global condemnation from other communities as well as to what's happening over there. That's the point that I want to make over here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anilji. Jyotsna ji, Mr. Prakash is in a quiet place now,
Right,
so let's
right. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shud Prakash ji. Of course, abhi gaadi mein baithe hain, bahut badhiya. That's fair. Shud ji, yes, we'd like to hear you now.
Thank you very much again. I must first compliment Jyotsna ji. I don't think we could find any better moderator. She is articulate, has a lot of knowledge on the subject. Thank you for conducting it so well.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
I wanted to say that, we have the government. I want to talk about solution. We know the problem, and I'll be very brief. With only one exception, I just want to. I agree with all the panelists. They're making such good points, very good remarks. Some emotional, some calm. But one of the panelists, which I really object to, because Lord Krishna is a Lord and my God. I cannot accept, I would not like that anybody comparing any human being to him or his avatar, especially a politician, So let's stay away from that. And what I want to suggest is that they're going over all these issues. The governments, like everybody's saying, must take care of Kashmiri Pandits who are in the camps. It's amazing for after years and years, all the governments, Congress government, this government have ignored them, not done much. But the solution, long-term solution to Kashmir can be based on the experience in Punjab. Government had adopted two-fold policy over there. Be super tough. Like KPS Gill, they gave him free hand. He was the DGP at that time, to go really hard on the terrorists. And the second was get people involved, get all the parties involved in the political process. The permanent solution cannot be achieved without the political process. In the end, even America had to negotiate, deal, sit down on the table with Taliban. So we can be very emotional. I know they don't have the greatest past, but there's no choice in Kashmir other than indulging and negotiating and talking with the moderate people, which all the politicians are. The government should adopt these two policies, give free hand to the army, become super tough, just like Israel. वो है ना saying कि आप एक मारोगे तो हम चार मारेंगे. Okay, they have to teach these people lesson. I tweeted last week that when they killed a new convert, killed 5 people in Norway in a gruesome attack, and then they're stabbing in London. The Islamic radicalists, they call it radicalization in a very sophisticated word in Western media. They can call anything anyways. But what I liked about President Trump was that he was bold enough to call it Islamic terrorism, which I do all the time. That there's fundamentally something wrong, and the only way they can be taught a lesson is tit for tat. We've been talking, especially all the governments in the last 70 years, but about peace and this and that. It should be twofold. Be super tough, give free hand to the army. If they killed, they picked up, they saw the ID cards and picked up Hindus and Sikhs. Now they killed our Jawans. It should be such a heavy attack, just like Israel does in Palestine. Teach them a lesson that, you kill one, we will kill 4. And at the same time, on the other side, nothing in the history of internationally or even within nationally has been a permanent solution without a political dialogue, political involvement. On the other side, I do support that they have to bring local elections and have local governments. The best thing now it is that the government, central government, can control the law enforcement, can control the police, but just the government, local governments will have all other responsibilities other than protecting people, which I like. That's the main thing I like about abolishing 370. That now the security is in the hand of the federal government. So they should crush it ruthlessly, the terrorism. That's the only language they understand. No other dialogue. At the same time, we must get the jo kehte hain na awam ko saath lena. Just like why Mahatma Gandhi was more successful, I would say, than Shaheed Bhagat Singh was. He took awam with them. So we have to, unfortunately, we have to involve the majority population in Kashmir, which is Muslim, and involve their leaders, and we have to support the moderate ones who are willing to run for elections, take oath of office, aligning their allegiance to India. So that's the only solution that we have to bring the people of Kashmir along with us on one side and be ruthless to terrorism. That's all my little input is, and I thank you again to everyone. And I'm sorry if I've said anything wrong. And God bless, and Jai Hind, and Jai Lord Krishna.
Thank you,
so much.
Prakashji. That was a very important insight. So yeah, any solution to a situation like in Kashmir is threefold. One is everyone agrees on one thing, is that the government has to get tough on terrorism. There is no doubt about that. You cannot appease the terrorists. You cannot just let them have a free hand. So that problem, which is happening now in Kashmir, has to be dealt with. And after that, we can talk about the political solution and all that later on. But first and foremost, we have to secure the lives of the minorities and secure the lives of everyone in Kashmir. That's a law and order situation right now. So thanks. Let's go on. We have two more speakers who are
right.
waiting.
In fact, Archana ji, I would like to take you in the end though,
yes,
because I know it's about your personal story. In fact, it was that day when I heard her personal story 3 years back that I created a connect with the Kashmiri community, the Kashmiri Hindu community. And I'm vocal since then. So I'll hear you.
Thank
Let's
you,
take Mohan Vanchuji first. Thank you so much. Mohan Vanchuji, he is based out of Uniondale, New York, and he is the CEO and founder of EC Infosystems, Inc. And besides being an entrepreneur, he is a community activist and a philanthropist. Mohanji, please, what is your story and how is the connect?
Thank you very much, Jyotsna ji and Archana ji, for calling me to this program. Really, really appreciate it. I know it's late in the program and others also have to speak. So I'll keep, my views very, very short and just make sure that, I finish in a couple of minutes. We're obviously, gathered here today to express, the anguish and the outrage that we have, against the recent killings in Jammu and Kashmir. The terrorists have targeted the Kashmiri Pandits, Sikhs, and workers from other states, Bihar, etc., who come to Kashmir to earn a livelihood. We are all obviously very distraught over the fact that the armed forces and the police personnel, also had to give their lives to fight against this menace. And just today, there's been another street hawker from Bihar, Arvind Kumar, who was shot dead, in Safakadal in Kashmir. Very, 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 very sad. Let me keep this short. The government, performed a Herculean task by abrogating Article 370 and 35A and made Jammu and Kashmir an integral part of India. Well, the government now has complete and absolute control of the state. So it's beyond my understanding why the government, is failing, to not comb, the entire group of terrorists. Just earlier this week, or maybe late last week, they rounded up about 900 above ground workers, and they're interrogating them. My question is, well, you were in control of the entire state. Why did it take so many people to die? And why did it take 2 years to comb, the operation? But anyway, be that as it may, I'm sure, they say better late than never. The other issue, I'd like to reflect upon is the conversations that, the Prime Minister's office is having with the Gupkar gang. Well, we all know, that these are the people who were responsible for, for the killings, in the thousands and the exodus of more than 450,000 Kashmiri Pandits. So why are these conversations being held with them and not with the Kashmiri Hindus? Known terrorists like Bita Karate and all the others are roaming around freely, No charges being filed against them. We don't know why. So now let's come to the root cause. We all know that Pakistan, is stuck in this causal loop, where they kind of need to realize that after so many decades of killings, it did not achieve anything. In fact, they're worse off today than they were earlier, because even Article 370 and 35A have been abrogated, from the Indian Constitution. So I think it's high time for Pakistan to understand that they need to somehow drop this path, because this path is really not helping them. It has not helped them till now. It is obviously not going to help them in the future. So they need to come to terms with the facts that yes, they can kill some, but they cannot kill our spirit. We Hindus are united, and more united now. The more they kill, the more we unite. And therefore, they need to kind of, reconsider their path. And I'm going to rest my case, at this point and turn it over to you, Jyotsna ji and Archana ji. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you, Mohan ji.
Thank you so
It's a
much.
pleasure.
In fact, सभी की stories ना बहुत दर्द भरी हैं. You all the Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Hindus who, left their motherland 30 years back, or, they have a painful story, and that pain shows up. But the good part about the Kashmiri Pandits and Hindus have been, they did not take guns in their hands. उनके हाथ में कलम थी. They took pen, they took books in their hands.
There we go.
And that's how they shaped their destiny. You are sitting in the different corners of the world, different countries, and you are mighty, you are strong, you are enabled, and you are the people who are able to give support to other people of the community. This is the beauty of Kashmiri Pandits, and people should learn from them. I am not a Kashmiri Pandit, and I am so obliged and so grateful to you, Archana ji, to moderate this show, because there are, of course, expressions. I, being an Indian, I have a solid connect to my motherland. अपने ही देश के लोगों को हम लोगों ने बांट के देखा. कश्मीरी हिंदुओं को, कश्मीरी पंडितों को हम हिंदुस्तानियों ने अलग तरीके से एक सहानुभूति तो दी, लेकिन उतनी दे करके बस चुप रह गए. Now things are changing. Even the Hindus all over India and the world are waking up to the nuisance that is being spread around by the radical forces, by the forces of conversion. There is a lot more to add. Well, we will have different sessions. But yes, from my personal front would be the appeal that all the Hindus, all the Indians who really love their motherland should support the entire Kashmiri community, the Kashmiri Hindu community, the Kashmiri diaspora. Why? Because if you're not standing today with them, then you will lose your ground later on. And secondly, from my perspective, what I feel, Archana ji, correct me, I would feel that lot of immigration, lot of people should migrate to Kashmir from different parts of the entire country.
Absolutely.
UP, Bihar,
Absolutely.
Haryana, Uttar Pradesh,
Absolutely.
Bangalore, चेन्नई, जाइए, हिंदुस्तान की ये जमीन है कश्मीर, वहां जाके जमीन खरीदिए, बिजनेस बनाइए, ट्रेड यूनियंस बनाइए और अपने कश्मीरी भाइयों को मजबूती दीजिए. जिस घर में विश्व हिंदू परिषद के लोग होंगे, आरएसएस के लोग होंगे, हिंदू स्वयंसेवक संघ के लोग होंगे, हिंदू ग्रुप्स के एक्टिविस्ट जो होंगे, अगर वही जाकर भी खड़े हो जाएंगे तो डेटरेंट वहां से भी शुरू हो जाएगा. डेटरेंट आप लोग बना नहीं रहे हैं. सबको अपना नाम कमाना है, अपने अपने छोटे छोटे ग्रुप्स के हिसाब से. दैट्स द प्रॉब्लम. क्यों नहीं जुड़ना चाहते हो?
मैं तो ये बोलूंगी कि जो इंडिया के पेट्रियट्स हैं, चाहे वो किसी भी धर्म से हों, वो जाके कश्मीर में रहें. We have to cultivate patriotism in Kashmir. That is what you need to do. कश्मीरी पंडित, उनका पेट्रियटिज्म आप ये समझ सकते हैं कि हम लोग 800 सालों से हिंदुस्तानी ही बने हुए हैं, चाहे हमारे साथ कितने भी एट्रॉसिटीज हुई हैं.
जी बिल्कुल.
इससे पहले कि मोहम्मद गजनी और गौरी दिल्ली पहुंचता है या राजस्थान पहुंचता है, उसको कश्मीर से निकलना है. पहली सैक्रिफाइस हमेशा कश्मीरी पंडित ने ही दी है. और अभी तक भी दे रहे हैं. It's been centuries of sacrifice because we love our country. That is the only thing that keeps us attached to our motherland. We are from Kashmir. For 5,000 years we have lived there. We still are patriotic, despite the fact that we have gone through so much of brutality and atrocities. We still are Indians. So that the Indians need to know. The Indians need to know that. All patriots need to know that.
100%. Archana ji, of course, my next panelist and my next speaker is you, the person who has
we have one more. We have Ashok ji from Canada.
Oh, Ashok Kaul ji, yes. Sorry,
he hasn't
my
spoken.
bad. थोड़ा सा मिस हो गया. अशोक जी, माफी चाहती हूँ.
नहीं
पर्सनल स्टोरी सुनते भूल गए.
मुझे मौका देने का. यहाँ पे मैं first of all let me address a couple of housekeeping items here. We heard
अशोक जी, एक मिनट आपका इंट्रोडक्शन दोबारा देना चाहूंगी पहले तो, क्योंकि इतना अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन है तो देना पड़ेगा. अशोक जी is from Ottawa, Canada, and is a former National Research Council scientist as well as the long-time president of the Indo-Canadian Kashmir Forum. अब बोलिए सर.
Thank you for that introduction. Actually, I run a company called Life Prediction Technologies for the last 21 years, but that's an aside. I would like to address, because since I've been involved with Vijayji from the very word go on these three forums, Indo-American, Indo-Canadian, and Indo-European Kashmir forums, I just wanted to address two housekeeping items. First of all, to the Rameshji's point that Kashmiri Hindus are a minority, the overseas forums participated in the Minority Rights Working Group of the United Nations Human Rights Commission. Yours truly was the rep on a regular basis there for 8 years, 1997 to 2005. And Minority Rights Working Group does recognize Kashmiri Pandits as an ethnic minority of Jammu and Kashmir. So so what the UN, what the Supreme Court is doing now, what the future Minority Rights Commission will do in J&K remains to be seen. The second item housekeeping item I wanted to address was, we actually do have a National Human Rights Commission ruling. And again, the three forums led the charge to the National Human Rights Commission, asking them to rule on the fact that we were ethnically cleansed from the valley. And we have that ruling. And that ruling came in June 1999. And the ruling also states that it is incumbent on the government of India to reverse this ethnic cleansing that has happened. And we are, like most speakers have said, we are still waiting for that to happen. They're not even addressing problems in Jammu, let alone in Kashmir Valley. So while we all applaud Modi ji and Amit Shah ji's efforts and their visionary moves that they have made, there obviously the latest killings, what it has shown is there are some major flaws in their strategy. And Vijayji aptly said that there are foreign forces at work. Afghanistan may have given them an impetus to do what they are doing. So it cannot be a knee-jerk reaction, but a well thought out strategy to counter this. Now, what is different this time is not only that Amit Shah ji and Modi ji are at the helm, but also that the civil society in Kashmir Valley has reacted to what has transpired. Other day we heard the mayor of Srinagar, Junaid Mattu, and it was truly a pleasure listening to him. and his views and things like that. While Gupkar gang may say whatever they want, but people like Junaid Muttu should be given prominence, and their ideas should be put forward. Now, only thing we don't know is how deep or how wide that sentiment is within the Muslim community. We should also recognize that Muslims living in the valley today, I deliberately use the word Muslims living in the valley because I don't consider them as Kashmiris, majority of them, because they are not. Historically and culturally, they are not Kashmiris. Let's be very honest about it. Let's be very blatant about it. And people like Mehbooba Mufti, I don't expect anything else because she's of Arab descent. Her family may have lived in Kashmir Valley for 300 years or so, but they still, all these outsiders, who I call them outsiders, truly have not adopted to what Kashmir truly is, or have not adopted to the essence of Kashmir. So Muslim diaspora in the valley is not uniform. So, and there are, of course, Muslims of Aboriginal Kashmiri descent, as we are the Aboriginals. Although we live the Aboriginal culture, they may be living a slightly different culture. Nevertheless, there is a mind melt there, and I could see that clearly when Junaid Muttu was speaking. The message I would like to give to the rest of the Indian civilization, people who believe in the values of Indian civilization, or people, and Archana rightly said, they can be of any religion, but who believe that Indian civilization is something that should be nurtured and that should be promoted, is that Kashmir, we may call it Kashmir by name, it truly is Saptarishi Bhumi. I would also like to correct people here. Over 5,000 years is only our written history. We have been living there. Our Saptarishis started living in Kashmir Valley, and the writing of Rig Veda was started from there. So each and every Hindu must be told this, must recognize this, that Kashmir Valley is not just a piece of real estate. It is our Saptarishi Bhumi, and it should be treated as such. Only person, of all the people, of all the leadership, if you go back a little bit in the history to the late 18th century, person who recognized this was none other than the Sikh ruler, Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Maharaja Ranjit Singh created a strategy called Sapta Sindhu concept. He wanted to go, and that's why you can see, you recently saw Sikhs fleeing Afghanistan and so on. His idea was to create the Sapta Sindhu, or reclaim the Sapta Sindhu region, because it was, from his perspective at that time, a cultural hub or a civilizational hub of northern India. So he wanted to reclaim that. Unfortunately, he didn't stay on the throne as long as we would have wanted. But certainly, Kashmiri Sikhs and Kashmiri Pandits, or Hindus in general, go a long way back. Ever since the second Guru asked the Kashmiri Hindus of Bijbehara to write a script for Punjabi, because Punjabi did not have a script, and Bijbehara Pandits were asked to write that script. Sixth Guru came to have discussion with Kashmiri Hindus to contribute to the Guru Granth Sahib. That's why Chhatti Patshahi today is where it is. It is in Kashmir Valley. So this linkage with Sikhs is long, so we should combine this strength of both Sikhs and Hindus together to fight the battle ahead. And let me just finish by saying it is our dharma, call of dharma to fight this battle for each and every Hindu and Sikh. They must join hands to fight this battle. Why? Because dharma, if we don't follow dharma, it has karmic consequences. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ashok.
Thank you so much, Ashok.
They say dharma rakshati rakshata. जो धर्म की रक्षा करता है उसकी रक्षा खुद होती है. बहुत सही बोला आपने. अर्चना जी, thank you so much, first of all, for arranging this entire discussion, bringing in the eminent speakers from all the parts of the world. और अब आपकी स्टोरी जानना सबके लिए इसलिए इम्पोर्टेंट है कि आप वो धागा है जिसने सभी मोतियों को पिरो दिया है, अपने साथ जोड़ लिया है, और एक यूनिफाइड एफर्ट्स आप कर रहे हैं to strengthen the Kashmiri Hindu diaspora, the Pandits, and to get a momentum, to get a final solution for this segment. Your story will inspire millions, and we need to know your story. I know it personally. Please share it with everyone.
Thank you so much, Jyotsna, for first being the moderator today. You just did a wonderful job by giving time and appropriate time to all the speakers, and it was wonderful to hear everyone's perspective, comments. It has enriched us today. What I'm so heartened by is that it has brought so many of us together globally. So with this show of like global participation, I'm hoping that we will continue to have discussions like this in future, so that we connect the entire global Kashmiri community together, and with that the entire the Hindu community together. So for me, unity is always the first thing that I ask for, that if you're not united, you can't do anything. And so we, despite our difference of opinions, and of course there are many, we are human beings, we are going to think differently, we are going to act differently, our perceptions are different, our experiences are different, and with those experiences come our personalities. So we have to respect each and every person for what they bring to the table. We have to listen to them. We have to understand them, where they are coming from. We cannot just disregard a person because he is not thinking like me. So perceptions are very important, and listening to people is important. So that's number one. I just want to make sure that people understand that this conversation is not here for any political reasons. We just want to, KOA, it was created basically for preservation of the culture of Kashmiri Pandit. And that's precisely what we're doing. This discussion is for the right to existence of Kashmiri Pandit. That's our human right. Protection of the Kashmiri Pandit, protecting our culture, our heritage, which if we don't do it, will be extinct in a few decades. We are fighting hard to protect and preserve our heritage here. And of course, bring to light the human rights abuses that have happened and continue to happen in the Valley of Kashmir. Now, the human rights abuses, of course, for Kashmiri Pandits have not been heard, while the rest of the world knows about the other community, but our human rights abuses have been brushed under the rug by all kinds of people, whether it was the governments then, or it was the world society, or it was the press. So we want to bring to the world's attention the human rights abuses that continue to happen. We are by nature a very kind, non-violent, accommodating, tolerant community. And I might remind everyone that we welcomed the first Muslim ruler, Shah Mir, in 1339. He was welcomed. Of course, the history of Kashmir changed after that. We still welcome the moderate voices in Kashmir Valley, the likes of Junaid, the mayor of Kashmir. We welcome that. Having said that, there are not too many voices like that we are hearing. So when you talk about my story, the story of Archana Kukru is no different than the story of the 4,500,000 people who left Kashmir. My story just resonates because I just left on that night of 19th January 1990, and the struggle before and after has made me the person I am today. I do understand the importance and the value of protecting my identity and my culture, and that is why I am vocal about these. I have a very strong stance about that. If I don't speak, no one else will speak for me. If I don't write my history will be twisted, and the narrative is going to be all different. It'll be written by someone who doesn't know what happened to the Kashmiri Pandits. And one of the things that came about in this discussion is that we don't talk about these things. We have to write the correct history. Otherwise, people will never know. 30 years from now, people will not know what happened. There was a Kashmiri Pandit, ever. We have to speak up. So with that, first, I just want to know the pointers, that takeaways from this discussion, so that it doesn't remain just a discussion. And we do, point out certain things. Maybe people who are listening, authorities, Government of India, any representative, that this discussion that we had today, there were certain things that we expected the government and the people in the authority to actually do. The first and foremost is stop the exodus. You cannot have a 1990 happen again. There's hardly any person of our culture living in Kashmir. They are our roots. They are attaching us to our roots. If a Kashmiri Pandit has to survive, and we indeed will have a community in the next century, those Kashmiri Pandits are extremely important. The protection of those people is the utmost duty of the government. That's number one. Number two is that we have to have security for every person in Kashmir today who is the target of the terrorists, irrespective of their religion or their denomination. It could be a Bihari, it could be a Sardarji, it could be a Muslim living in the valley and coming from a different part of the country. So every person who is the target, a soft target for the terrorist, has to be protected. That is the again, moral obligation of the government. So security of those Kashmiris and non-Kashmiris who are in the valley and working for the improvement of the Kashmir Valley. The government has to take a very tough stand on terrorism. We cannot dilly-dally with them. Appeasement policies has not worked ever. It will not work. And if we look at the other countries, Israel, for that matter, United States of America, I cannot imagine that if we had a terrorist outfit here, the government would not have wiped them out. In a night, they would be gone. I don't know how we have terrorist organizations working for decades in the Valley of Kashmir. The borders, it is the job of the government to secure the borders. Kashmir's borders are not secure. So that is the job of the government. So any state or any organization which is a sponsor of terrorism has to be called out. We cannot really, make soft comments about that. So call them out. Protect the prominent Kashmiri Pandits outside of Kashmir who are the voice of Kashmiri Pandits. There are many of them, and they are really, their lives, they have been given threatenings and stuff. The government should give them protection. So that's number one. And finally, I think that I would again urge the government to look for the Kashmiri Pandits who have not received any justice from the killers. When their family members have been killed, the killers have not been arrested, or they're not behind the bars. We have a Bitta Karate roaming around freely. We have a Yasin Malik who becomes a politician after killing so many Kashmiri Pandits. Where is the judicial system in India? What message are we giving to the criminals? If you let these terrorists roam around in the streets, every other person is going to be encouraged in picking a gun up. This is law and order. This is the fabric of the judiciary of any country. That needs to be looked into. So finally, I will say a couple of points that Ashokji said, and of course, we are we have discussed this very much in the past. months when the COVID hit and our community was, disproportionately affected. And at that time, we did together work in Jagti. So Jagti is the soul of Kashmiri Pandits. We cannot just leave it. It is our obligation. Every Kashmiri Pandit's obligation is to make sure that the Jagti camp doesn't exist. They all thrive like all of us are doing. And the government's obligation is, why is there not a hospital there? Hospital, it's an essential service. Why is there not a school for the education of the students there? So that needs to be looked into, and Kashmiri Pandits around the world need to have a hard look at that. Why aren't the residents of Jagti having the same facilities like you and I do in this country? Why aren't we doing that? We can easily do that. We have the avenues to do that. So in my opinion, Jagti should be the main focus. If we have to help Kashmiri Pandits, help Jagti and other camps, not only Jagti. Jagti is just a name, but there are many other camps. The residents need to be taken care of there. And finally, I think the government needs to understand that the talks about Kashmir Valley cannot be happening without the participation of the Kashmiri Pandits. We need to be in those talks. So with that, I think that we will close today's discussion. We have had a very strong point of views here. And of course, I respect all of you who came and spoke about their emotions, their, whichever way you want to express it. And at the end of the day, we have to work with everyone. We have to work with the moderates there. We have to work with the government. The government is already doing a lot. And Kashmir's situation, is not an easy one to deal with, and especially with the Afghanistan being in turmoil. Some of the spillover of the terrorist activities have come to Kashmir. We understand that the geopolitics of the area is not easy to deal with. Having said that, we have to give the government, we have to strengthen the government. We have to strengthen the moderates of the valley. Above all, we all have to unite. We cannot be divided. A divided pie makes a mess. You have to be united. All Kashmiri Pandits and moderates and patriots, all Indians have to unite. Thank you so much. Again, thank all the panelists for being here, especially Jyotsna. You have been wonderful, and I'm hoping that we will continue these discussions. As I said, that this is first of many. The voices of the people need to be heard. They need to be brought to the forefront. And maybe at some point, the government of India will listen to us. So with that, I do urge all of you who are in the Philadelphia area to join us for the candlelight vigil today. It is in remembrance of our civilians, the killed civilians, which again, the number is going up. And of course, also for the martyred soldiers who are fighting for our land. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Jyotsna ji, thank you very much.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Namaskar.
I will stay connected. I will represent as much as I can. I will be there with the Kashmiri community, our Kashmiri Pandits and Hindus.
My story next time.
100%. And Tariq Fateh will join next time. He and his family, his wife both fell sick. They had a medical emergency. That's the only problem. He could not join in, and he has apologized for that.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I didn't say that. I did speak with Tariq ji, and he was not feeling so good. So he has promised that next time he will connect to us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.